What's up everybody, Gamble here, bringing you the latest tips, tricks, and news in the world of Pokemon Go PvP. There is a ton of stuff to get through for Pokemon Go PvP, news that we can expect, stuff that we need to be looking out for in the upcoming month. So, let's go ahead and get in this thing. The first thing that I want to go over is what we can expect seeing from Season 2 for the Silph tournament community. There are some changes that they're making that I think we all should be aware of. I'm not going to go over all of them. I do think that a lot of it is really important for us to be aware of. So you should definitely go down to the description and click the link and read it yourself. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things here that I like and that I think are important. The first thing that I want to go over is that they're adding 2 new player tiers to the ranking system. As it is right now, we've only got 4 tiers, whatever the beginning one is, Rival, Challenger, and Ace. They're going to be adding 2 new player tiers to those top ranked players that are able to earn it, which means everybody else is going to be ranking up while I stick around in the Challenger section. No, but seriously, I do think that this is a good change for the Silph community because it adds more distinguishing factors to how we can identify ourselves within the community. I feel like as it is right now, there are so many different ranges of skill levels within the rank of Challenger that it's too vague to identify yourself as that. I think these 2 new player rankings is really going to help us to really know where we stand among the rest of the community. The next change, and I think this is the biggest change in the Silph community, is that every battle counts. Now, instead of going best 2 out of 3 and just identifying who won that best 2 out of 3, you're going to be seeing all 3 battles played within a match of a best 2 out of 3. And the reason for that is they want to add more tiebreaker factors. We're seeing way too many tournaments that are being decided as a 5-way tie because they have the same outcome as far as wins versus losses. This is going to add more factors to help to establish tiebreakers, who wins a tournament, who comes in second place, who comes in second, third, fourth, and fifth place. And it's really going to help us to better establish where you stand at the end of a tournament. The thing that I'm iffy about is that you have to play all 3 battles. I don't really understand why you can't just, if you win the first 2 battles, let that be the end of it, and you won all of the matches in that, all of the battles in that match. I don't know. Like this, I feel like this could lengthen tournaments unnecessarily. I think that maybe we might see tournaments go a little bit longer because of this, at the point where every match has to have 3 battles in it. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Okay, looks like they are increasing the weight of opponent. So if you play against somebody who's a higher rank than you, that can contribute more to your overall ranking. That's pretty cool. Let's go down to where we at here. Looks like there are a lot of changes that they're making to establish more accountability, establish more responsibility on the player to know what's happening before the tournament starts. You are no longer allowed to use outside assistance and external resources during a tournament. You have to come prepared with that knowledge beforehand. You can't be asking any players in the tournament, outside of the tournament, or consulting any sims or information on the interwebs. The last thing that I want to talk about Season 2 changes is something that I think that this is only really going to affect the higher ranking players. It definitely will affect them the most, if anything. Traveler cards must be public for ranked competitors. Any competitors wishing to play ranked during the 2019 to 2020 season are required to leave their traveler card and tournament history accessible to the public. No hiding tournament histories this season. There are a lot of high-ranking players that are keeping their traveler card private. And the reason for that is we might be seeing other players kind of sniping these players by looking at their traveler cards and preparing ahead of time what Pokemon they want to run on their team. If a player who might be high ranked runs a team that they might want to run again at another tournament, a player could be aware of that. A lower ranking player or somebody that wants to prepare specifically for that high ranking player, they can look at that player's traveler card and they can do their research to prepare for what that player might come to the table with. Player. I'm not sure how I feel about this change, because I think that it makes it more challenging for higher ranking players, because obviously that's what everybody's going to be preparing for. If there are players that are actually doing this, that are looking ahead of time to see what these high ranking trainers are going to be running at the tournaments, then they're going to be affected the most. They either have to change their teams or they have to be really confident in their skill to be able to come to a match with the other player potentially already knowing what that trainer is running on their team. I don't know. I see why they're doing this, I think. I could go either way on this one. On the one hand, I think that it does add another element that high-ranking players need to bring to the table. They need to be adaptable. They need to be able to change things up because people are going to be preparing to go up against them. So, on that hand, yeah, I guess I could see why they would add that as a competitive element to it. But I don't know. I don't think that this is necessary. I don't think that it's something that's really going to help anyone, except for lower-ranking players that might want to become prepared for it. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. This one is kind of iffy for me. There are a lot of rules that you should read up on, but that's it for Season 2 that I'm going to highlight. I think those are the important things, but there are a lot of specifics as far as what you need to know about what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, and how matches are going to be decided. So go and check that out in the link in the description below. The next thing that I want to go over is what Niantic just tweeted out just a couple of hours ago, which is the next Community Day is going to be Trapinn. If I can find that tweet, where'd we go here? Here we go. Trapinn. Now, this is huge for PvPers because Flygon is actually a really good Pokemon for PvP, and it could become even better depending on what moveset it gets for its special Community Day move. Flygon can already learn Mudshot, which is probably the fastest energy per turn move in Pokemon Go in PvP. And on top of that, it has Dragon Claw, which causes neutral damage to almost every Pokemon in most metas. Super effective damage against those dragons. And it has Earthquake or Stone Edge, which is an incredible closing move. And when paired with that Mudshot, charges up super fast, you've got yourself a really good closer. Now, Flygon is a little bit on the squishy side, which is working against it a little bit, but it does have amazing moves, and it could get even better moves with this Community Day. So be looking out for that on the next Community Day. You're going to be looking for a good Great League one, and probably a good Ultra League one. Master League is kind of meh, but you're probably going to be wanting to look out for those and be prepared with your best PvP IV Trapinn for this one. And the last thing that I want to go over in today's video is the announcement of the Sinister Cup, coming to you the first tournament of Season 2 starting October 1st and ending October 31st. The typings for the Sinister Cup is going to be Ghost types, Psychic types, Steel types, and Fighting types. But here's the interesting part. No dark Pokemon are allowed, so we're not going to be seeing any Sableye or Spiritomb. You're not allowed to run Hypno, so there's no Legacy Hypno that is available with those incredible moves that Niantic just added, and no Skarmory available, which is cool because we have seen way too many Skarmory thus far in each of these tournaments. The Sinister Cup is a really interesting tournament format that I want to keep talking about at Wednesday Night Raid. Okay, I am a little bit late. It is 4 o'clock Wednesday night, and I'm hitting up Wednesday Night Raid in Roseville, California. We are expected to have a pretty large group because Shiny Mewtwo is out, and usually when this one comes around, we're looking at larger groups than normal. This group has been meeting up every Wednesday night for the past 2.5 years. So long-standing community that meets out here. This is where the Pokemon Go community really started. Raids is what made Pokemon Go explode. This is the grassroots of PvP. Anybody that plays PvP it started here, you know, doing raid groups, doing raid trains, grouping up with people and getting the best Pokemon that we can. So this is what we do here. Let's see what Raid 1 looks like. Alright, that right there is how we do Wednesday night raids. Every Wednesday night for the past 3 years, I think I said 2.5 years earlier, but I was at the 3rd anniversary. Anyways, Wednesday night raid has been such a huge help for me in just how I do PvP, because it's my primary source for charged TMs, and anybody who PvPs knows that charged TM is a very valuable resource in PvP, and without Wednesday Night Raid, I would not be able to perform at the mediocre level that I currently do. But anyways, I know that you didn't click on this video to talk about how we do our Wednesday Night Raid groups, though if you did click on this video and you're ever in the Roseville area looking for a raid group to hit up on a Wednesday night, we'll be at Vernon Square on Vernon Street in Roseville at 4 p.m. Hit us up, we'd love to have you. Anyways, the Sinister Cup. Sinister Cup starts October 1st, and already went over the typings earlier. If you go to pvppoke.com, what you'll notice right away is that Alolan Marowak is sitting up at that top ranking right there. Everybody sees it. That comes as a surprise to some. I don't know why. Alolan Marowak, I think, could have been expected to be at the top at this one, but I don't think it was expected that Alolan Marowak would be such a dominant staple Pokemon in this meta. We really should have seen it coming, because we removed, well, Silph removed all of the hard counters to Alolan Marowak. We don't have Dark-type Pokemon, and even if we do have Dark-type moves coming from those Psychic-type Pokemon, still, you're going to be taking super effective damage back from Alolan Marowak's Ghost-type moves. And that is a problem. Alolan Marowak, if we look at the counters here, just at a first glance, we've got one hard counter that actually lands in the 800s as far as battle rating goes. And the rest of them are all in the 600s. That should be concerning. I want to take a look at all of the counters here. I've already got the hard counters pulled up here. And if you notice, we've got like 9 counters here. Overall, Alolan Marowak wins 76 out of the, what's the total? 95, 85, 93. Out of 93 Pokemon, Alolan Marowak wins 76 of them, ties with 8 of them, and loses to only 9 of them. I want to take a look at those 9 Pokemon because at least one of these 9 Pokemon is something that you're going to need to have on your team. Now let's take a look here. Now, Empoleon is the #1 counter for Alolan Marowak in this meta. And I think the reason is pretty obvious. Its typing puts it at an advantage over Alolan Marowak. I think it's not taking super effective damage. I don't know if it resists that Ghost type. Does Steel resist Ghost? I don't know. Somebody tell me in the comments. But Empoleon, I think, is a one-trick pony in this meta. In that, Empoleon is only going to be used to counter that Alolan Marowak. And Empoleon's never been my favorite Pokemon for PvP because it doesn't have the right charged moves. You know, it's got real heavy charged moves, and I think that's a problem. The fast move doesn't really charge him up fast enough. It can be a good closer, maybe, but I don't know. Empoleon, if you're going to run it on your team, expect to only use it for Alolan Marowak. Now, the next one up, we're looking at that Haunter. Haunter, I think, is in a similar but different situation. Haunter is just so squishy that I think its only, like, real good use is going to be against an Alolan Marowak. You're going to be causing super effective damage, but you're going to be taking super effective damage back. And Haunter is so squishy that I just feel like it's not really going to have much other uses in the meta. It's going to be taken down so easily that I don't think that it's going to be very helpful. I don't know. If you can run with it, if you can protect it, Haunter might be useful on your team. I just don't have a lot of faith in it. I don't think that it will be a very powerful force on this team because it's just so squishy. And with that poison subtyping, it's going to be taking neutral damage from the psychic-type Pokemon that we're going to be seeing out there. I expect Cresselia to be there, and Cresselia is going to hurt Haunter bad. Now, if we're looking at the Steelix, I am likely going to be running a Steelix on my team, but not primarily as an Alolan Marowak counter. Now, let's look at this matchup here. If we look at the Sims, Steelix wins that battle against an Alolan Marowak in that one-shield matchup. And it looks good, but you have to hit that Earthquake in order to win it pretty convincingly. If you take Earthquake out of the equation, the matchup looks very, very different. Now, Steelix still wins the one-shield matchup, but not as convincingly. 40 HP versus around 6 HP, depending on PvP IVs, you're not looking at a very convincing win. You have to shield bait it out in order to actually take this match convincingly. Now, Steelix can be used primarily as an Alolan Marowak counter, and you can run those crunches as a way to take down that Marowak. But if you try to run that that Earthquake and it gets shielded, it could be trouble. So Steelix, not a comfortable or hard counter, but it is a good pick for this meta. It's still tanky, it's still got great moves, it's still going to do good things for you, but as an Alolan Marowak counter, you need some more oomph behind it on your team. You can't just run Steelix as your Alolan Marowak counter. Now, so here's the problem with the Pokemon that actually beat Alolan Marowak. Some of them are not meta relevant. Lunatone and Solrock, don't run those on your team. Those are... I don't expect those to do very well, and I think you're going to be at a disadvantage when you're running those Pokemon specifically on your team. So, not something that I would recommend. Overall, if you're looking at what we have here, the Pokemon that counter Alolan Marowak are ones that are super weak to fighting and ground-type moves. We're looking at Probopass, we're looking at Aggron, we're looking at Bastiodon, Steelix goes into that category too, and Empoleon. And Empoleon's only going to take super effective damage from the fighting types, but my point is that the Alolan Marowak counters is going to be what this tournament I think is going to boil down to. You want to make sure you have that force on your team. It's going to be a game of protect the Alolan Marowak. So when you're picking Pokemon for your team, you want to make sure that you have Pokemon that beat these Alolan Marowak counters. Specifically, these are ones that you're going to want to pay closer attention to. You're going to want to put them together. And here's what I think most teams are going to look like. I think we're going to see Alolan Marowak on most teams. We're going to see Steelix on most teams. And we're going to see Poliwrath on most teams. Between that Steelix and Poliwrath duo, you have enough oomph behind you to actually take out that Alolan Marowak. And, running the Alolan Marowak on your team, you can take on most of the Pokemon that we have available to us. So, last thing that I want to do here, I want to leave you with for my initial thoughts here, is I want to take a look at this matchup between Poliwrath and Alolan Marowak. Now, if you look at the Sims, it has it running Hydro Pump in order to win this matchup relatively convincingly. I think that's a mistake. I think that's a very high-risk move, and it's not really necessary. Let me show you why. Take Hydro Pump out of the equation, just Hydro Pumps and Bubbles. You are still winning that matchup, and it's not much of a bigger difference. And the reason for that is those power-up punches are putting more oomph behind your bubble attacks. So it's adding more water damage to it. You can calculate this matchup much better if you're running just Bubble and Power Up Punch, and you can use that Ice Punch as utility for other matchups other than Alolan Marowak. I'm not going to recommend Hydro Pump. I don't think that that's a good move. Run Bubble, run Power Up Punch, and then run Ice Punch. I think that's your best bet. All you got to do is shield once against that Alolan Marowak, and you take this matchup. No matter what you do. Well, I guess you tie if Alolan Marowak shields twice and you shield once, but I don't know. That's still a win, I think. If you can take 2 shields and only give up 1, I think that's a win. You know, you're still coming ahead in that trade. So Poliwrath, the Sims will run Hydro Pump. I do not recommend running Hydro Pump, just run Power Up Punches throughout the whole thing, and it's still about the same type of matchup. So, the 3 elements that you're going to want to look for on your team is the Alolan Marowak. I think that's going to be on every team. If you're not running it, you're at a disadvantage. You don't have a Pokemon that beats 86% of the meta? I don't know. It's getting dark outside. I should probably wrap this up here. But 3 elements you should be looking at first is the Alolan Marowak counter, and the counters to the Alolan Marowak. For example, like I had laid out, Alolan Marowak, Steelix, and Poliwrath. You don't have to run these Pokemon, but I do think these are going to be the best ones that most people are running, but I encourage creativity. Run something that somebody's not going to see coming, run something that is really going to pack a punch, something that gives you the tools to do what you need to do. You know, meta's meta for a reason, that's true, but I fully encourage creativity as long as you have the tools to do what you need to do. And yeah, that is that. Those are my initial thoughts on the Sinister Cup, things that you're going to want to pay attention to in building this team together. We'll talk about more picks for later on. We've got a PvP hangout in my PvP community, and we'll be doing some practice matches there. I'll get some interviews with some really high-level trainers that can help you up your game in this tournament. Wow, you can't even see my face anymore, so that means that it is time to go. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.